it is possible to overcome the works of the devil spiritually. The devil fights physically, and the Lord met him face to face in a spiritual physical battle. And there was a few times when the Lord got physical. Jesus was not afraid to get physical with the devil. Whatever it took. You know something? He was able to call fire down from heaven, but he didn't. You know what I mean? He was able to. Excuse me. Give me some water, babe, will you please? He was able to call fire down from heaven, but he didn't. When he made the cord, he plied the cord. Jesus, I'm convinced that he did it. Thanks.
Water from there.
I'm convinced that he did it. He could take his time and calm down before he went in to take action. Now, he took a whip and he ran people out of church. We're going to read that in a minute. But think of what he could have done. He could have thanks. He could have been calling fire down. He could have called lightning down. He could have called an asteroid down. You know, the scientists tell us that an asteroid hits 100,000 times harder than any atomic weapon that we have. When they measure the impact of an asteroid, they measure it in times of an atomic explosion. And not only that, but excuse me, Jesus helped make the atom. He could split as many as he wanted right there. You know something? That's what I call this, Jesus splitting atoms. No, not the original one, but the one that he put the original one together with. Splitting atoms. Able to do whatever he wanted. Created the element chart. Created the element chart. Because, listen, he was taking his time to calm down. Listen, we as Christians, we have to realize the force that we have behind us. You know why everybody fights against us? Because they know where the true power lies. Every person on the face of this earth has a certain respect for the Christian. I know sometimes it comes out in hate. You know, there's a lot of people that hate people with money without a cause because they got money. Same thing with a Christian. A lot of people hate a Christian without a cause because they have this ultimate power. They know that God exists in us and we in them. Jesus said there in that one place, he said, Father, I pray. He was praying for us. And he said that you be in them as I am in you and that you are in me. And so they know, you know, that this is God's plan. They know that this thing is in us, that is total power, is total raiment. In the end, everybody will answer to this. So they hate us without a cause for that reason. And that stirs up a lot of anger. That stirs up the devil. That's the devil's main fuss with God, you know. He knows that someday he's going to have to answer to God. You know, so they puff themselves up and they act real big and they fight and they shoot and they kill people. And like the Muslims are doing. You know what? the Democrats are talking about stop hate. Well, I wish somebody would stop hate. While you're at it, stop the Muslims from hating the Christian. You know, stop the Muslim from killing people. Of who we're voting for and of who we're causing to do, and all the things that's going on, and it's not necessarily bending over and bowing down to the needs of the enemy. Listen, Christ did not do that. Christ did not do that. I've met a lot of Christians today who think that the best way to get through life is just to bend and to bow, turn the other cheek. There's a time to turn the other cheek, and there's a time not to. Listen, Christ was teaching turn the other cheek, but listen to what he did in John 2:15. NIV. So he made a whip of cords and drove all from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins. That's not a good interpretation of that verse. That is not a good thing. Okay, King James. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them out of the temple, and the sheep, and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables. It was very clear. Okay, now listen to what he said to them. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Let's go to the next, verse 16. And he's going to... NIV says, and to those who sold doves, he said, get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market. And that is not really what he was pointing to. This is what he was pointing to. And said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, or away from here, hence. Make not my Father's house a house of merchandise, is what he was pointing to. He wasn't pointing to a marketplace or the act of a marketplace. He was pointing to the marketplace in total, overall. He was like, okay, it's like some churches have a yard sale, and some people get it mixed up, like I do a lot of times, and sometimes I think having a yard sale could be just as bad, depending on how they do it. Some churches, they will fight and bicker just like they do in the marketplace. You know, this is what Jesus had against that, you know. And it brings in a whole other onslaught of evil able to come into the church. And this is why Jesus was upset, and this is why the Christian today, the true Christian, we seem to be gaining more true Christians today because of all the political things going on. That's a good thing. But I want you to know that Christ did not hesitate when it comes to facing off with the devil. The most vigorous confrontation between the devil and Christ I find in the book of Matthew 8, verse 28, with the maniac of Gadara. And let's just go over here. Let's just go over here on King James, Matthew 8:28, and let's read a little bit of that, because I want to show you that Christ was not afraid. The devil, you know, he saw in the temple that Christ was not afraid to get physical, okay? But Jesus took care of the spiritual part of it first. And when it was come to the other side, into the country of the Gadarenes. There met him 2 possessed with devils coming out of the tombs. I always thought it was one there. I learned something new this morning. Exceeding fierce, so that no man might pass by that way. You know, I think that might be where they got the story of Billy Goat Gruff and all that stuff, and what you see on TV with these people. The devil's always wanting to charge a toll, isn't he? And same thing with our toll roads, you know. I don't think that's anything godly. Just my opinion. And behold, they cried out, What have we to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come hither to torment us before the time? And there was a good way off from them an herd of many swine. And the devils besought him, saying, If thou cast us out, suffer us to go away into the herd of swine. And he said to them, Go. And when they were come out, they went into the herd of swine, and behold, the whole herd of swine ran violently down the steep place and perished in the waters. And they that kept them fed and went their way into the cities and told everything and what was befallen to the possessed of the devils. And I just realized something here. In another place in the Bible, it does say there was one person instead of 2. You know what that tells me? Excuse me. That tells me that there were more than one incident like this that took place. And apparently there were many in this land of Gadarenes that dwelt in places like among the tombs. And Jesus apparently had met more than one of them and cast more than one of them into a herd of swine. And it's amazing how the Lord always picked the swine to cast the demons into. Okay, and this is and that's probably why they think that they're unclean, you know, or Jesus meant it, or Jesus did it that way because them being of a heart by Abraham, knew that the swine was unclean to them. So this is why Jesus did it that way, knowing that they would see it as an evil and he had done something good. So it was a fight to the finish. It was a fight to the finish. Spiritually, Christ always did it spiritually as well as physically. And sometimes we have to be ready and willing to stand up physical. But listen, our battle is not with the flesh. The Bible tells us in Ephesians Ephesians 8, it says, our battle is not against flesh and blood. Ephesians 8:12. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Now Jesus told his disciples one time, he says, listen, they wanted to call fire down right away, just like that, and burn them all up. Should we call fire down, Lord, like Elijah did? And Jesus says, hold on here, fellas. Hold your horses. He said, you don't know what kind of men that you are, what kind of spirit that you are of, because we want to make sure that the spiritual side of this is taken care of. Only as a last resort. Only as a last resort. Elijah feared for his life when he called fire down. It still was the same loving God. And those men meant to take him by force. And all these men were doing here in Christ's day was just, they were ignoring Christ. And the Lord is saying, listen, that's not the way to win hearts of someone who is not trying to kill you, you know. So there's a time and a place for that kind of thing. But our battle is not against, listen, we are to make every corner. Israel does it perfect. Watch the way Israel does it. They make every intercession for peace. They make every challenge that they can find to open to peace. Constantly. For 7 years, the Palestinians bombarded them with bombs. Israel not opening their mouth. Had at their hand all the time. All the time they had at their hand. Weapons they could give. You know what? They could send one on the Gaza Strip. They could send one bomb, wipe the whole place out. No more problem with people throwing bombs. Same thing with Christ. When he walked into the temple, he could have wiped the whole place out. No, listen. Christian, learn to deal with the spiritual side. There's a lot of Christians out there right now just want to go and smack. But that's not the way. That's not the way God meant it to do. Alright, God bless you. We thank you for joining us today. We'll see you again next time. Another great message right here, across in the middle of minute.